Well, hello friends, and welcome to another Ask Zach. Hope you are doing well today. Today, of course, we're going to talk about Les Pauls, and I had to kind of continue with the motif of the what are Strats for, and do the what are Les Pauls for. But really, this is a chance just to kind of talk about how I got this R9 Les Paul that I had to pick out from the factory. And just the tweaks and the things that I look for in a Les Paul. And yes, I'm a Telecaster guy, but I love Les Paul guitars also, and love, the history and such. So if you've been enjoying the show, and if you haven't done it already, please subscribe. If you've already subscribed and you've been watching the show and you'd like to support it, well, you can go to askzach.com and you can pick up, we have these new hats. And this is one of the new t-shirts, says "It's a Sickness." So you can pick up one of those, and I appreciate it. Also, I've had a few guys reach out to me wanting to support the show, but not wanting to buy merch. And so, and they've wanted to PayPal me and kind of tip me. So if you want to do that, that's great too. And so I'll put my PayPal email address, in the description of the video if you want to do that. All right. Les Paul guitars. So I think, when the Les Paul really hit me was hearing Mike Bloomfield on the Super Session album doing Albert's Shuffle. That really, just the first notes that I heard, and the tone, and everything about that. And then, of course, again, as a teenager, I got, Live at the Fillmore East. And hearing, Dwayne and Dickie's, tones on that album, golly, it just blew my mind. Now, some of the, there's all sorts of other live stuff with Dwayne, and on the deluxe set of the Eat a Peach, there's some really neat, I think it's some of the last Fillmore stuff that they did, and that's some of my absolute favorite. But those are the guys that really hit me, as far as, Les Paul players. And of course I was listening to Clapton, the Blues Breaker record especially. So, and I think those are common, kind of Les Paul touchstones. So, of course I was playing a lot of country music in the 90s and such, and I was mainly using a Telecaster and a Strat. And I think it wasn't until the early 2000s that I really started thinking about a Les Paul, to own one. So, as the years went on and I started, kind of getting some money together and learning about Les Pauls, I started checking them out, and I knew I certainly couldn't afford a real burst. And then, of course, even like the 68 and 69, kind of reissues, the Gold Top and the Black Beauty that Gibson did, even those were kind of out of my price range. They were just still so high. So I started checking out some of the Gibson Custom Shop guitars, and started finding out about, the historics, or hysterics, as some people call them. And, after playing them all, unfortunately, the one that I liked the best was the R9, which is probably one of the most expensive ones. But they also have like the R5 and the R6 and the R7 and the R8, and they all, but the R9s and the ROs, they kind of get they tended to get the prettiest tops on them and have the lightest weight, bodies and such. So I contacted a friend of mine over at Gibson, and I said, I would like to pick up an R9. I was wondering if I could buy it directly from Gibson. And, because sometimes they do like accommodation sales, because of course I've worked with artists and then also, worked with True Tone. I said, I would like to pick up a guitar directly, from Gibson. And I would like to go to Gibson Custom, and I would like to try out a bunch first and pick one out. Well, I would not have asked that of my friend if I'd known, what a ballsy request that was and how rare it was to actually get to go there and pick him out. And so my friend was really kind and didn't say anything about how ballsy my request was. But he made it happen, and so it took a couple months, but in May of 2008, I got to go down to the Gibson Custom Shop, and they told me that they were going to give me a tour of the place also, and so I asked, can I bring a friend? And they said sure, and so I took my buddy Jay Smith, and Jay is the guy that designed the Ask ZAC logo and also like these t-shirts and other things. And he's a great long-time friend of mine. And so he and I went together, and we got to take this great tour of the Gibson Custom Shop, and got to see everything from the woods to, them scraping the binding and painting and the VOS stuff that they were using at the time that they were smearing on the finish and everything. It was fantastic. And then I got to go through all of the R9s they had, which they had about 35 of them. And so I went through every single one of them. Now, they told me beforehand I couldn't play through them through an amp. So there'd be no amp available. So I could just, play through it, acoustically. And then also they had a scale so that I could weigh them, because of course that's kind of a big deal with Les Pauls. And so out of all the 35, this one was the lightest weight with the prettiest top and the most resonance. And also, it felt good to me. So, and this one was pretty enough that they had not put the pick guard on. And so when I picked it out, the gentleman said, this one's got a really nice top, so we haven't put the pick guard on yet. Do you want us to put the pick guard on? I said, no way. So I've kept it, pick guardless. And so it was really, really special to be able to get this. And of course, it's probably one of the most, probably most money I've, spent on a guitar besides my 67 Tele. And it's a great, great instrument. And funnily enough, as soon as any of us buy anything, even if it's nice, we start jacking with it, and you start getting on the forums, and you start, checking out all sorts of things. And of course I did that. And I tried out like Tone Pro's like locking hardware, and I didn't like it. And so I've stayed with the the stock hardware on here. I have not changed that out. I did change out the pots to the nicer feeling 500Ks, and I actually got some old caps from Bill Crook. He had some old caps lying around that were I think they're the white Dublin or whatever. They're not the bumblebees. They're the ones that were used right before the bumblebees. But anyway, he had a set of those in his parts drawer, and so he donated those to me. So thanks to Bill Crook. Then I started messing with pickups, and the pickups that were in it were burst buckers, and they were heavily potted. And so I knew I wanted to get something that was unpotted. And so what I ended up doing, and I ended up being very happy with, and they're still in the guitar, is I contacted the Seymour Duncan Custom Shop, and I had a custom set of Antiquities made. And so they're unpotted, And I wanted them underwound because I had found that I really liked the humbuckers that were lower output because they tend to have more of that chirp to them and more clarity. And I wasn't trying to be, I wasn't trying to be Led Zeppelin or anything like that. I'm more of a clean player, though I do like some drive. So I ended up, I had to write this down. So the neck is 6.8K and the bridge is 7.9K. And so basically it's kind of like the bridge pickup is like a stock neck pickup as far as output. And so what I've told people is if they want to get a set of Antiquities, get 2 neck pickups and use them in both positions. That way you'll kind of have a lower output set and not have to pay extra for a custom thing. On top of that, because I was having to have these custom made, I asked if Seymour Duncan would sign the bottom of the pickups saying, "To ZAC from Seymour." And I didn't think he would do it, but he did. So, yeah. So if this guitar is ever stolen, there'll be a set of Seymour Duncan Antiquities with "To ZAC from Seymour" on the bottom. So, anyway, yeah. So this has been a really great guitar, and I know I'm a Telecaster guy, but there is something about the fatness and the sustain that you can't get from other instruments, and it's just having to do with a big block of mahogany, with a slab of maple on the top, and just the design. You got neck angle, body to neck angle, these separate tailpiece and bridge, which is really neat because on a Tele or a Strat, you can't really adjust the tension because that's what this tailpiece is for. You can raise it or lower it, and you can change the tension here, and you can even get the tension really low by top wrapping, which that gets too loose for me. But on a Tele or a Strat, you're kind of stuck with when you get the action where you want it. That's just the break angle that you have, and you can't change that. And that's kind of one of the tough things. But it's also there's simplicity in the Telecaster design. So So this is I'm gonna turn the Mostortion off and echo. So this is just the guitar, and this is the neck pickup. Then both. Again, what I look for in a Les Paul is clarity and also that chirp. I want to hear that chirp, and the bridge pickup has a nice clarity. You can almost kind of do kind of a Telecaster thing. You can almost chicken pick. So it has a nice thing to it. A couple things that I do whenever I'm playing a Les Paul. One is I do not use the same EQ settings at all. So, normally I set the treble at 4 and the bass at 5 when I'm playing a Tele. With a Les Paul, I set the treble to 5 and the bass down to 3. And that's because, this guitar just has more output, more content, more mid-range, more bass. And because of that, you kind of have to tame it a little bit, on the amp. Otherwise, it's just going to be too much. So kind of have to be careful, especially if you're going back and forth with a Tele and a Les Paul. It can be a bit much, but these guitars are great, because of the amount of sustain that they have, and they're easy to play. They have less, kind of fight to them than a Tele, and so it's and the reason I have one is because it makes me play, very differently. I'm not tempted to do any of the things that I would do on a Telecaster, and that's good. It's a very, very good thing. I love the fact that it's got 2 volumes and 2 tone controls, because that fixes the problem that I have with the Tele, where this way I can, set the tone, full up for the neck pickup, and then I can darken the back pickup. And, that just, gives you, a much better sound. Another thing that's interesting about Les Pauls is, by watching a lot of the better players that use them, you'll see that a lot of them will live kind of on both pickups, and they won't really change that. They'll just mix the pickups differently depending on what song they're playing or if they're going to solo or not. And a lot of them will tend to kind of back off the bridge pickup when they're playing rhythm, and then they bring in more of the bridge pickup when they're going to solo. And it's a great sound. And definitely, don't just leave everything full up and just go back and forth. Really utilize those the mixes of tones that are available here. Another thing that I've always been tempted to do on one of these is to get a phase reversal switch, and that's because of of course Peter Green, and just that cool out of phase sound. And it's great because again, because you have 2 volumes and 2 tone controls, you can mix the amount of out of phaseness. And so, like on a Tele, when you put the 2 pickups out of phase, you're stuck with that weird phased, heavily phased sound that has no bass. And on a Les Paul, you can mix that amount of out of phaseness in, and you can get some really, really great tones. And old JD, my buddy JD, has a push-pull pot on his old 62 335, which he calls Red, and and he can flip that and get that cool sound. So and then it's just fun to put some drive on, and a little delay, and put it on the back pickup, and so. All right. Well, guys, I really appreciate you watching the show today, and hope you will get out your Les Pauls, and comment below about your Les Paul or humbucker equipped guitar, and let's just have fun together. Well, thank you so much, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.